Frumpkin. It's such an honor to be here with Laura and the team from Inside Schools and Gigi, who we'll introduce in a moment. And tonight is a kind of a special session. We're going to have a live office hour session. So what this means is that we're going to be taking your questions live through the chat. So at any time, please feel free to put any questions in the chat. You should all be able to do that as of right now. This is not a formal presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura to introduce herself, and then we'll get going.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Zingman, Senior Editor at Inside Schools. I hope you, if you registered for this, you also got the link to our prior webinars we did in the spring, and I hope Maurice and I are familiar faces by now. Please start putting your questions in the chat. And I also want to give a shout out to my colleague, Gigi Hernandez, who is helping us out with reviewing the questions in the chat. We're going to try to get through as many as possible. And I also just want to give a plug for next week on Wednesday, we're hosting office hours in Spanish, and it will be hosted by Gigi as well as Stephanie Uraña. So Gigi will put the registration link in the chat. Please spread the word. Maybe pass it on to your school's parent coordinator, PTA or something. I bet there are families in the school who could benefit from joining our Spanish office hours. So, and please also share the link to our prior webinars, which are available in English and Spanish, because they are packed with information. And with that said, we can go on to, let's get started. Oh, Maurice?
Thanks, Laura. No, I'm just a really quick introduction. So my background is both with the DOE and also in the independent school world. And I don't want to spend too much time on my bio. We want to jump right into the questions. So as Laura said, please, any questions in the chat, we're going to get to as many as possible as we can tonight. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to jump right in. The first question was about, can you speak about essays for consortium schools and audition for arts programs? So the nice thing is that the DOE is starting to post information and will be updating information on the DOE website about not only any screen program with an assessment, including essays for consortium schools, but also arts audition guidelines. So I encourage you to monitor the website and also individual school websites, but the definitive source of guidelines for the essays and the auditions are on the DOE website. Please monitor this up until October 7th, when everything is expected to become final and official.
And I'll also just add one of the great things about applying to consortium schools is that you write one essay. There are, I believe, 5. There are many more than 5 consortium schools, and a lot of them are really terrific. But 5 do require assessments, and you write the essay once, and you can rank all 5 of them on your application, and they'll review it. The one thing to keep in mind with the consortium essays is they're really looking to get a sense that you sort of understand the consortium method, and you get to answer one of 2 questions, which are really going at the same thing. You can either talk about why you think you're a good fit for it. It's usually something around that, or they often, can you reflect on a time when? And you're basically conveying the same thing. Either you're conveying it through a story where you demonstrate in the story things that the attributes and the understanding of that you're a good fit for consortium. And the other one is you understand the consortium method, which is they delve deeply into topics. It's less about tests. They a lot of research and writing and deep thinking. They'll maybe, where some schools might spend a week or 2 on a topic, they may spend 6 on it. So they may cover fewer topics, but dive more deeply. And so keep that in mind when you're answering it. There is no right one, but you give an option to usually answer 1 or 2, but they're both getting at the same thing. And let's see. Someone said quickly, can my 10th grader apply to transfer to another high school? If you're in 10th grade, you have to know the main high school admissions process applies to for 8th graders and first-time 9th graders applying to 10th grade. After that, you have to, if you feel that you need to transfer your child's current school isn't a good fit, I recommend you do your research. get a list of schools and work with the Family Welcome Center. Go to Family Welcome Center to arrange for a transfer. And depending on the reason of the transfer, they'll work with you to figure out which are the right schools. Just scrolling through. Oh, I missed the sessions in the spring. How can I watch them? Well, if you go to InsideSchools.org on the actual homepage, you'll scroll down a little, there'll be a link to a blog post that has links to all the both sessions in English and Spanish. And the cool thing, that'll take you to the YouTube channel. And the cool thing is we actually timestamp sections, different sections of the webinars. So if you don't want to watch it from beginning to end, you can jump around to the topics that are great interest. Maurice, you want to take one, or do you see one? I'm brand new to the New York City Public Schools. When does a high school application begin? Maurice, did you have a slide about just a general timeline? Did we go through that? You want to just flash that?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. This is the general timeline. So you can see these are dates that have actually been released by the DOE. So after October 7th, you'll have access to your application. So you will have received your welcome letter with your login information. October is the SHSAT registration period. And then really quickly by December 3rd, that's kind of a key date because then you'll have to finalize your applications, submit any additional materials, and that's the LaGuardia registration deadline as well.
And if you're in a charter or an independent school, the application may not be live for you until closer to mid or late October. That's okay. You're not applying, you're not completing it and submitting it until, it's just the online form. You're not completing or submitting it until December. Do your research, keep going, doing everything. Once you get access to your application, just double check everything, all the information. It'll be populated with information personalized to you is correct.
Or do you want to take the?
Sorry. Oh, I apologize. I thought I was unmuted. I was unmuted. It's mid for students who are in New York City public schools. It'll be mid-November. Pulling up the exact date. Norris, do you have the exact date?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Oh, specialized high school. When will they take the specialized high school exam?
So for public school students in a public school that ends in 8th grade, you will take it on November 12th in your school. For other students, you'll take it the weekend of November 15th and 16th. So if you're in a non-public school, you'll register for that weekend. You can specify whether or not you want the Saturday or the Sunday. And the DOE will let you know when you're taking it. But again, if you're in a public school that ends in 8th grade, you'll take it on November 12th in your school. And those dates are also on the DOE website, by the way.
We also have Inside Schools has a page on the specialized high school and the exam, and it's loaded with the links to take you to all the up-to-date information on the DOE site, and the DOE also created a separate website for information and practice materials for the new digital exam. So actually, because they're rolling out the new digital version of the exam, you're getting an extra 2 weeks before taking it, so an extra 2 weeks to chill. Somebody wrote, when do tours begin? Now, they've already started. I really recommend put in the time now, start getting school list. The My Schools has a calendar. And you could search for school and see when the dates are. Sometimes the school will add dates, and sometimes it won't be clear on the calendar if you need to register. Some schools just have a date and you show up. Other schools will ask that you register just for crowd control and they have multiple dates. So I always recommend to click through to the school's independent website to double check the information, whether it's that date you have to register or not. But some of the very popular schools have actually posted it even before the first day of school. So this week, even if you're unsure about a school, check, whatever method you have to organize, paper, spreadsheet, whatever, just start clicking around to see what the schools that you may be interested in, what the dates are. And if they require registration, sign up ASAP. Try to be mindful of not scheduling too many school visits in 1 week, particularly because it's overwhelming for the eighth grader and you, the parent. So,
By the way, if we skip over any question inadvertently, please feel free to retype it in the chat. We apologize for any ones we might skip. Can you explain what is a consortium school? We did not answer that one, right? Yet?
no, we talked about the essay. So consortium schools are, there are about roughly 30 schools. I mean, they're often known because they're exempt from administering the Regents exams, except for the English Regents exam, although we might be doing away with Regents exams. So that's how people know, but it's much more than that. It's a philosophy of education that they follow. So students do, it's a lot more project work and deep studies into fewer topics. They dive deeper into fewer topics. There's a lot of collaborative work. There's a lot of research and writing. They tend to be smaller schools, though Beacon is a consortium school too. They all adhere to a particular philosophy, but they each have their own character, and there are a lot of wonderful ones. 5 of them require assessments, but other ones, let's say Essex Street or Harvest Collegiate, I'm just off the top of my head, are both you know consortium schools that you just have to rank if you like that method and that approach to education. They tend to be smaller, and it really is an inspiring way for a lot of kids. And in general, it could, I won't specific, they also are very good with students with special needs. So they're just very sort of flexible in meeting the kids' needs in a general way. I did notice that somebody said you have a neat question that might be very specific. It'll be hard to answer now, but here's the thing. Inside Schools, you go to the homepage and click they say Ask Us. We answer any question you ask. You can click on that and fill out the form, and someone will get back to you and we will respond to your specific question. So please feel free to make use of that service that we provide every day, and we will answer your question.
Next question was about, can my 10th grader apply to transfer to another high school after the fall semester this year? I would reach out to one of us also about that, because it's a pretty unique situation that is not normally accommodated by the conventional application process that 8th graders go through and first-time 9th graders go through. So with respect to a transfer after 9th grade, reach out to us and we can talk about your situation.
Okay, Maurice, I'm going to read this one. Because of the predictor tool that is new this year, it was new last year, will that make it easier for parents to have a balanced list of schools, applicants, per seat, and admission method? I'll briefly say that's the goal. I still think, and it's a good, and I think they are improving on it from last year. Last year was a pilot, but Maurice, do you have any little more to say on it from your experience on your
I,
end?
I think you're right, Laura. And it's not new this year. Last year was
Yeah.
sort of the beta test. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it'll be even a little bit better than last year. But yes, I think that it makes it easier for parents to have a balanced list of schools. And also, I think one really valuable benefit is that it helps you so you don't have to worry about interpreting lottery number and screen group and priority group and all these things you have to think about. It does that work for you because it's personalized for your student. So I think that's super valuable.
Somebody wrote, in the listing process, I guess that mean when you rank the schools on the application, will there be different places to list a number one if you're applying to specialized supplement and ed op? So specialized high schools are separate. There are the 8 test-in schools. You take the SHAZAT, Specialized High School Admission Test, and you will, when you register, you place the order that you want to apply them in. I encourage you to rank as many of the specialized up to 8. LaGuardia is another specialized that has a separate application process. You audition, you can audition for multiple studios and get multiple offers. Those are separate. So they're, think of it as different lanes. Then the main application are all the other 400 plus high schools. And on that, it doesn't matter what the admissions method is, whether it's ed op screened assessment. You just rank and actually starting last year, you can rank as many as you want. You're going to go, not, don't go crazy, but certainly aim for at least 12. You know, some people went up more to 15, 16, fine. I think beyond that, you can drive yourself crazy. So, but it is helpful to be able to rank even more than 12. But it doesn't matter the admissions method for the 400 plus schools that are not one of the 9 specialized. You just rank the schools in true order of preference. You don't have to rank the screen schools on top of the ed-op or whatever you want. You rank whatever school you like. And don't decide you like schools based on their admission method. Decide you like schools based on what they have to offer, their approach, their size, their commute, your child's needs. The admissions method doesn't tell as much about the school as the school's qualities do.
Next question was about, can you tell us about tech schools and the SHSAT exam? I mean, I'll talk for a second about the exam, and then maybe I'll turn it over to Laura, the expert, about learning about different schools. I mean, as far as the SHSAT, honestly, the DOE has updated a tremendous amount of really good information about the new online version of the test. So I highly recommend that, you know, outside of books and tutors and so forth, go to the DOE website and search for specialized high schools. There's a lot of information about the new online version of the test and tips and guidelines, so that you can know what to anticipate, and sample exams that are arguably the closest thing to the actual test that your student is going to take. So I'll turn it over to Laura for the other part of that question.
And could you remind me which question?
The question was about what can you tell us about tech schools and the SHSAT exam?
Oh, the tech schools. So career and technical education schools, there are a massive amount. And I will say that we do go into it a little more in depth in the first of our 2 webinar series, the intro one, in your options. And on our main high school page on InsideSchools, we also talk about it. But career and technical education have dual missions. It's career prep plus a full academic high school experience as well. They're not the old vocational schools. This is, for instance, Brooklyn Tech, which is a specialized high school, is also a career and technical school. There are over 200, I believe, career and technical programs. There are massive amounts. The entire school is their theme is a particular career-oriented theme. Some larger schools, they have multiple programs, and one of them may be a CTE. And yes, you can, if you complete the full coursework, you might get a CTE endorsement on your diploma. But more importantly, the schools that do that, if it's a career that you're interested in prep, you can actually take actual professional certifications, and depending on, the type of CTE school, and you can actually earn them, like ENT certification, computer-aided design certification. There are some amazing cool ones like aviation high school. I mean, that's an amazing career in technical education. If kids are interested in aviation engineering, you really get to dismantle and work on planes. I mean, this is just an example of them. You still have to, regardless of the theme, whether it's CTE or a school has a particular theme, they have to deliver on the theme, but also assess their academics too, separately from that, just because you want to make sure that in service of the theme, they're not, I don't want to say cutting corners, but particularly smaller schools, if they're delivering a lot of classes on their theme, they may not offer the full range of science courses, because that is Most kids won't be taking it, and that's not in service of the theme. A lot of CTE schools, you don't offer 4 years of a foreign language. They're not required to, because you're taking this, you're fulfilling additional CT requirements in place of that. They're required to offer it for a year or two, and now with online learning, they may be. But regardless of the theme or the type of school, CT otherwise, you still have to sort of, even if you think it's a groovy theme, you still have to see, one, if the school delivers on the theme, and two, um, if they're really delivering on academics. And you can look at the courses they offer. I believe, I forgot which one of the webinars we did. I'll have to check. Where I show on on Inside Schools profile page for an individual school, if you scroll down under all the data, you'll see more DOE data, and you go to that, and then you click on reports in the school quality report. You can actually see how many seniors are completing certain things. And keep in mind, data is looking backwards. It's where a school's been, not where it's going. So if a school's added new programs and you see that no seniors have graduated completing it, well, maybe it's because they haven't graduated the first class who have benefited from that program. So you look on websites, you use Inside Schools, you use My Schools, and you go to tours and you ask questions. And I always recommend that you read up, do a little research right before the tour. Look at the school website, look at Inside Schools, look at My Schools, see what the school is saying they're offering, and then ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you can't ask questions, a lot of questions of the person presenting, maybe there are students there you can ask questions to. High school students are really honest. It's great to ask them, and they'll be very honest with you. Okay, I know that was a little long-winded, but
No, it's all good stuff. I'm going to talk for a minute about lottery number. So maybe this will answer a lot of questions about lottery number in the welcome letter. So basically, everybody's going to get a welcome letter before October 7th when the application system opens. If you're in a non-public school, you'll get it either from your counselor, or you can always get it from the DOE if you choose to do that. You have that option. If you're a public school student, you'll get it directly from the DOE. So once you log into the system after October 7th, you'll have the opportunity to get your lottery number. But there's a little kind of tip. Once you first log into the system, in order to generate your lottery number, you have to start your application. There's a little button on the dashboard that says start or begin application. You have to click on that in order for your lottery number to be generated. And then when you go to your My Schools profile page in your account, so you're logged in, you click on your little links that says edit profile on your profile page, then you will see your lottery number. Really quickly, so lottery number, first of all, it's not first come, first serve. You don't get a better lottery number the sooner you log in. That's not the way it works. So if you if you don't log in right away, that's okay. It is a completely random long string of digits. It has nothing to do with your grades or your test scores or where you go to school or anything like that. It's completely randomly generated by the algorithm. It's based on the hexadecimal system, which basically means that the first two digits of the lottery number can give you a pretty good indication of the relative strength of your lottery number. If you know anything about the hexadecimal system, the strongest lottery numbers start with the low numbers. So 0, 1, 2, 3. The first digit goes from 0 to 9, and then from the letter A like Apple to F like Frank. So the whole range goes from 0, the first digit that is, goes from 0 to F like Frank. So the lower your number, the stronger the lottery number. Now, what I always encourage families to do is try to avoid this temptation of looking at lottery number in a vacuum, because it's not one big lottery system where the only thing that matters is your lottery number. The other things that matter are the things that Laura and I have started talking about tonight. Screen group, what priority group you might fall into. The demand for a program is, are there 30 applicants for every seat? Are there 5 applicants for every seat? These things matter as well. So it's really important that when you're looking at lottery number, you're taking it into context. Now, this is the beauty, though, of this new bar graph system that the DOE has developed. which is sort of related to a question we got earlier, the bar graphs will help interpret all of these things that I'm talking about. So you'll get a better sense of what your chances are. But in a nutshell, that's the lottery system. The DOE, last thing I'll say, and then we can move on. The DOE actually has a really nice video. It's like a 6 or 7 minute video on their website that tells you a little bit more about how the random number or the lottery number works. Okay. Should we go to the next question? Laura, do you want to handle this one? Can parents help their students improve their essays?
Yes, they shouldn't write them for them. No writing. The students got to do the work. But yes, you can help because I have to say some of the essays they're more like college level questions, and so I think it's fine to have conversations, break it down. In fact, I encourage you to, also it builds their confidence. I mean, they're 13 years old and they're asking, I need tell us about a time. A lot of 13-year-olds, well, I didn't do anything interesting, or or they'll tell a time and they won't put a lot of color and detail. And you can encourage them to have conversation, and maybe you jot down notes as you're talking, or have them do an outline of all the things they would like to say that sort of responds to it, and brainstorm, and then they can go off and do a draft, and you can look at it and you can say, oh, tighten it up here and stuff, but it should be their work. The people who are reviewing them, especially most schools, will be reviewing them themselves, even if you submit it through the direct portal. Some schools, you submit the essays directly to the school. Some are centralized, like consortium schools, you do through the portal. But the teachers are looking at them. They have been doing this year after year. They know the kind of punctuation and language and style that even a brilliant 13-year-old will have, and what it won't have, So, and don't put words in their mouth. And if you happen to explain something and use a word they wouldn't use, then say, well, how would you describe this? Really encourage them to use their words. But I think it's perfectly fine to have conversations, to build their confidence, break it down for them. It's overwhelming. And ideally, you want them to go to a school, if they're given a challenging question, that especially in ninth grade, they would take them through the different steps. So as long as you're not writing it for them, I think it's fine. And I also hopefully, if you don't feel comfortable, or if there are any students watching and you don't feel help, certainly you can reach out to people in your school, maybe reach out to a teacher and ask if you can, during pre-period, brainstorm. If you have if you have a specific question, we take them from students too, you can ask us. But yes, lots of conversations, outlines. You can even just record it. And then let them listen back and take notes and do an outline. My one last little bit of advice is, if you're also taking the specialized high school exam, normally it's the beginning of October, the end of October, and my advice is always get the outlines, do the deep thinking, but then focus on the Shazat, and then once that is over, return to the essays and bang them out, because you've already done your outlines. It's a little later this year. It's now a little more than 2 weeks before the application deadline. So you might have to do a little more pacing, maybe try to wrap up, at least if you're applying to schools where you might have to write more than one essay, because the consortium's one essay, but then you apply to another school that's a different prompt. Maybe try to knock off the ones that are easier earlier. You don't have to submit them. You can look at them over again after you take the specialized high school exam to tweak it, but try to not just have first drafts of everything or just outlines, because the timeline's a little different this year, so the pacing is a little different.
So I'm skipping over a few questions that I believe we got to already. And I'm going to the next question, which is there any center we can go to for assistance with your application? So your first line of defense should be your school counselor. If for some reason that's not going to work, for whatever reason, you can absolutely speak to a counselor at the DOE. You can reach out to us and we can put you in touch with any assistance you might be able to get outside of the DOE. But Yeah, the first thing to do is go to your counselor. Next question. Sorry, I'm trying to go fast because I know we have a lot of questions. How can the DOE vet essays that are authentic? I think Laura pretty much just covered that question. Is there any difference the child is ELA student or the regular English speaker? I mean, if the English is a child's secondary language, does the child have any differences in the SHSAT examination? Um, so no, I would say that um, English language learners can be entitled to certain testing accommodations on the SHSAT. Or if a student has an IEP or a 504 plan, you can be entitled to accommodations. But other than that, the SHSAT is the SHSAT. So there's really no difference per se. Um, what are screen schools looking for in the interview? I mean, I can say that there are very few screen schools that have an interview. Bard is one that has an interview process. And there are a couple other throughout the city, but I would encourage you to sort of look at what their guidelines are. Really generally speaking, I mean, schools are looking to know that the student kind of understands why they represent a good fit for the school. And you want to make sure that you're answering any questions that the school might give you, that you're demonstrating sincere interest in the school, and that you can express your own interests in terms of what you might want to do when you get to high school, what your favorite things are academically and outside of academics. So they're looking to get to know you. I mean, that's one of the basic elements of the interview is the child should be prepared to talk about themselves a little bit in a genuine way. Um, for non-public students, what location would they take the test? So they're going to take it at a central DOE location, depending upon where their school is. But they do not take it at their school, but they are given a computer to take it online. We talked about the lottery. We talked about consortium schools. We talked about open houses.
I wanted to add one thing for English language learners, and this
Please.
is that with the there will be glossaries embedded in the new digital version in multiple languages. So while it's given in English, um, again, it'll probably be tailored if your home language or you're an English language learner, you will also have the benefit of access to a glossary to define certain terms in, your home language. And you can learn more about that. I can throw it in the chat on the DOE page. I also included the Inside Schools guide to Shazat, which links to all these different pages. But I'm just throwing it in right now, and you could scroll down to will accommodations continue to be available for students with disabilities and English language learners? And also, if you have any sort of extended time or anything like that, 504 accommodations or your IEPs, they will be honored.
Yeah, that's
You just have to make sure that that is reflected, that your guidance counselor accurately inputs the information when you
yeah,
register.
really, really valuable information, Laura. So another question was about a particular school in the Bronx and whether or not we can start the application or add that school as your first choice. So you can do all those things after October 7th, after the application system opens and you log in for the first time. You'll have plenty of time to do that. Can a ninth grade student apply to transfer into a specialized school for 10th grade? The answer is yes. You have the option as a first-time ninth grader of taking the SHSAT again if you choose to do that. Can you share information about the process for students currently enrolled in a NEST program? Yeah, so if you're currently enrolled in a NEST program, you can apply to other NEST programs throughout the city, and you have the opportunity to do that on your main application. And by the way, we're not talking about, I'm assuming we're not talking about NEST plus M, the school. We're talking about NEST programs, which is a certain model of classroom. So the process is sort of similar where you would incorporate those choices, those NEST programs that you might see in the My School system onto your main high school application. So if there's more nuance to that question that I didn't address, please feel free to put it in the chat. How does it work with the screen school process? So I think we covered a lot of this, but basically for screen programs that don't require any extra assignment, it's pretty simple. If you're interested in that program, you place it on your application. But if it does have an extra assessment, so if it's a screen program with an assessment, not only do you have to put it on your application, but you have to, your child has to fulfill whatever that assignment is by whatever deadline is given for that assignment. And for most of the time, the deadline is by the first week of December. We talked,
I
yeah,
see,
sorry, go ahead.
our
Sorry.
charter schools have their own individual application. Yes, if you're going to apply to charter high school, that deadline is usually the very beginning of April. And unless you want to see if you can get off the wait list to go in, if for your current grade, it's a very separate process. And my advice also, even if you're interested in charter schools, it's a short period to get everything done for the New York City public schools. Focus on that first and then shift to charters. It's not that I'm saying don't consider charters. You just have more time. If you spend time visiting 5 charter schools in October and then wipe out and you don't feel like you have enough energy to visit more schools, you've missed out on 5, public schools that you could have visited that you will have to apply to by the beginning of December. So focus on the Department of Education run schools. You could certainly do your research on charter, and then as soon as you finish your application, you can switch to charter schools. Also, there's no bonus to getting submitting application early. I recommend submitting it a few days before the deadline in case there's a technical glitch, but submitting an essay, rushing and getting it done and banging it out and getting it done and submitting it by mid-October is not going to be any benefit. If you want to bang it out and great, I wouldn't submit it. I'd look at it again in mid-November and see if you want to tweak it and revise it more. There's just no benefit to submitting everything early. What there is a benefit to is signing up for open houses and getting a handle on the different requirements that schools, particularly screen schools with assessments, have, because the assessments are different. The example like Bard, you going to an open house doesn't sign you up for you have to do a separate registration to get take the assessment in person. You take it once and it will count for any of the bards. So keep that in mind, that you also have to understand all the nuances of screened with assessment schools. But and you should also have an understanding of how much they're weighting the essay versus how much they're weighting grades and things along those lines. And all that information will be available. It doesn't change much from year to year, but probably by the end of next week, my schools will be updated. I can't promise. That's what the expectation is. After you get back from the 2-day school break, probably the end of next week, but certainly it'll be updated by the time the application opens. But the only thing you have to do when the application opens is make sure you have access to it and make sure that the information populated with your child's specific information, what grade tier they're in, any priorities. Just make sure that information is accurate. If there's anything that's incorrect, take it up with your school counselor. You have time to correct it, but get it corrected. So that's all you have to worry about when the application is available and open. Submission stuff, and even how you're going to rank the schools, that's further down the line.
I'm sorry, Laura, just one quick thing to add though. If you're in a non-public school, please note that your grades usually don't show up right away.
Yeah.
Usually it takes a couple weeks for the DOE to upload your grades. Let me be really clear. Your school is responsible for entering course marks on your behalf, but by the time the DOE sort of does what they do on the back end, those grades will not show up for a couple weeks, usually for non-public school students. So sometimes I get that question, so just wanted to put that out there. There's a question about how do we get into the DOE system if we're not in a non-public school? I think we covered that, so let us know if we didn't. I need to re-enroll my child in a high school. I mean, I would encourage you to go to the DOE website because it depends on a number of factors. Generally speaking, if you want to re-enroll your child in a high school, you should speak to a welcome center. You should meet with a counselor at a welcome center to do that. Are there any resources we can use to guide us on what's the most convenient school for the kids? I'm going to turn this one over to Laura.
Well, InsideSchools is a great place to start, and I use it in tandem with My Schools and this individual school's website. Think of the school profile page on Inside Schools as a portal to the other information. We have direct links to that school's My School page. We have direct links to the school's independent website. We have direct links to the data, additional data sources for that specific school right on that page. And we have a guided search. If you answer a few questions, you get a list of schools, and then you can narrow and filter. And one thing, we go, especially in the first of the two webinars, we do go into what to consider in your options. When you do your exploration, you always start with what matters to me and then what the schools offer. But you can, what the guided search does is you can then start playing around and narrowing and filtering the large results to things that matter to you. And one thing I encourage everyone to do, and you can find it in the first of the two webinars at the 2130 mark, is that there is a new college and career readiness metric that is updated on Inside Schools profiles, and you can actually filter and look from high to low, sort schools with the highest one. The school doesn't have to have a perfect 100 or even an 80 or 90, but they should have a strong, 60, 70, because this is an important metric. It's I have a quick thing. So basically each student, when they graduate, in a particular year is assigned a score of 1 to 100. That reflects their grades, their test scores, advanced courses completed, certifications earned if they're CTE. It's a formula, and on a scale of 1 to 100. And then the school's college and career readiness score is the average of all those students from a particular graduating class's individual scores. So the higher the CCR score for the school, the more kids are going above and beyond just the minimum graduation requirements. They're tackling advanced courses. They're getting certifications if it's a CTE school. They're getting good grades. So I think that's an important metric. It's something you glance at. There are some good schools that maybe have middling ones. And if you like a school and it has a middling one, don't eliminate it, but I would ask questions, follow-up question when you go to the school tour about that. And the reason I focus on that one stat, I'm not, scores and stats don't tell the whole story, but it does give the sort of the temperature for how kids are doing by the end of 4 years at the school. I mean, it's a helpful metric. It's not the only metric you should consider, but it is one metric that sort of gives you a little snapshot. You don't want to see a very low CCR.
Thank you,
I
Laura.
hope, sorry if I went, again, that's in the first of the two webinars, the intro one at the 2130 mark. And I know that because I copied and pasted the timestamps we have on right under the YouTube video for it, so if you go to that video, I think we put it in the link. We have a page on Inside Schools that links to all the different videos in English and Spanish for our high school admissions series.
Thank you, Laura. It's amazing.
Let's see what else we have.
There's a question from Michelle. What was the tool you were saying is very useful and personalized? I might have been talking, it might have been when I was talking about the offer chances bars. I think that's what you're referring to, Michelle. So sorry, I wasn't more clear about that. What happens if an 8th grader cannot pass the SHSAT exam? Do they have a chance to pass it at some point? So yeah, we mentioned that they can take it again as a first-time 9th grader if they want to. For high schools, do they still go by your district? Most high schools district, I should say district, any kind of district priority was for the most part completely eliminated with a couple of exceptions. For example, BART Brooklyn, and maybe one or two schools around the city. But other than that, there is no more district priority. There are some schools, as Laura, I think, mentioned before, there are some schools that might have borough priority, but not district so much anymore. Are there consortium schools in the Bronx? There are a couple. One thing you can do is there's a consortium website. If you Google consortium schools in New York City, there's
And I did throw that into the chat at some point if you want to scroll through it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there are, and by the way, on our guided search, one of the ways you can narrow your results is by project-based schools. Those will be the consortium schools. And I believe I give I sort of explain the guided search in the first of the two webinars, the intro webinar. So if you want a little tutorial on that, but you are able to, when you get the results, just filter for consortium schools and see, and then just look through those.
Nice. Do we have to go to each school's individual page to see when the tours are? I think Laura had already covered that. What are something that those interested in applying for LaGuardia can do in advance? I mean, generally speaking, there are a couple things. One is use InsideSchools, go to an open house, learn as much about what it's like to be in a school like that. And of course, if you decide that that school is for you, familiarize yourself with the audition guidelines for whatever programs you're interested in. So in a really quick nutshell, those are a couple things that I would recommend.
I also just threw into the chat the DOE's or the NYC Public Schools high school audition page. If you click on the different areas, like dance, if you click on dance and drop down, you'll see all the schools that have a dance program audition. But then you'll see there are also additional links to all these resources on additional tips, pre-recorded dance and music to the dances. And so the DOE actually, if you just really scroll through, and look at the different arts that you might be auditioning for, they actually, that page offer links to a lot of helpful tutorials. And it's all free, and so it's worth, and I just threw that in, so scroll to the end of the chat and you'll see the audition info page and link through that.
There's question, tell me if we got to this already. What is the three top pieces of advice for applying to a high school and the way of better improving your chances on the specific high school she wants? I'll give my 2 cents and then I'll see, Laura, you can chime in. So I think, first of all, talk to your counselor about what, if anything, your child can do to maximize their chances of getting into a high school. I mean, one of the easy things you should do if they really want that school is listed at the top of your application. But if there are other criteria, whether it's an essay or an interview or whatever the case may be, talk to a counselor, talk to one of us about how to maximize those opportunities so that, you know, when the school is assessing your candidate on the basis of those things, that your child is putting their best foot forward. Anything else you would add, Laura?
Keep an open mind. Right now, cast a wide net to maximize your chances. You need to explore beyond the few schools that are what everyone's talking about in your circle. I guess, you know, do you really think it starts with inward introspection. What are the most important things? And then do the research. So there's a lot of resources, and we go into depth on them in the prior ones and use InsideSchools, which will also link to them, and our resources in itself, offer lots of resources in itself, to do the research, because you got to find the right fit. And you've got to, I guess, you know, if also, please understand that there are some schools that look at grades, and then there's the tiers, and inevitably there's some kids who just miss the tier 1 and they have their heart set. 1, you still rank the school, but 2, why do you want that school so much? I guarantee you there are a few other schools that offer very similar experience, some similar rich advanced courses and extracurriculars. And so that just requires doing a little more work, having conversations and asking, you know, talking to people in the know, asking for additional recommendations, and doing your own exploration. And I know it's hard, and it's not like a Netflix series. You're not going to binge research. Pace yourself. Maybe look at one school a day or every other day, do a little research and sort of follow it through. Click on its website, look at Inside Schools profile, look at the My Schools page, read the comments on the profile and see, and if it's an audition school, then or something, or a screen school, then go a screened assessment. Go while you're looking at that, look at what they're requiring for it, and sort of focus on pick a school a day to branch out and do research. That will help you be more comfortable putting together a balanced and successful application.
So I'm skipping through a couple of these questions I think we covered already with respect to ranking and essays. I missed the beginning of the webinar. We'll be sending out the recording to everybody. We'll distribute that. Are there different priorities for those applying from non-public schools? No. The question was about getting higher priority or lower priority based on the type of school I'm applying to. The answer is no. The process works the same. Yes, charter schools have their own individual application that's separate from the process we're talking about. If a child is not accepted to any of the high schools we apply for, is there always a guaranteed public high school they can attend? Absolutely. Many students throughout the city don't necessarily have a zoned high school guarantee, but the DOE will always find a school within proximity if you don't get into something you applied to. What I would say, though, is that you sort of want to avoid that situation where you're relying on the DOE to give you something, so meet with your counselor, meet with someone who can give you professional advice on filling out your applications so that you don't end up in that situation.
Yeah, and I'll just add that you rank in true order of benefit, and true order of preference, and it's okay to put a few schools that maybe are reach for whatever reason because of high demand, so it's a reach for everyone, or you're not in the tier that, your grades, or whatever the reason is. You can always do it, but make sure, bargain with yourself. For every school that's a real reach, make sure there's a school that's more in your range. And the stats are that if you apply to at least 12 schools that a balanced application, you will get placed at one of them. So try to get excited for at least 12 schools. You go up, add more schools, and there are also wait lists. So you might end up being placed at a school. If you don't get placed at any of the schools you ranked, you will be placed you'll get a placement in early March, but you'll also be on the wait list for all the schools you apply to, and you can add yourself to other wait lists. And that's something to not worry about now. But somebody also read, are seventh grades a factor in getting admitted to any schools? Yes. There are schools that are screened. If it's just screened, they look at grades, and there's a standardized formula that all schools have to follow. And if it's screened with assessment, that means that you have to do something extra, essay, something. And some of those screened with assessment schools may also look at grades. Some don't. The key thing to know is if a school is auditioned or screened with assessment, you will have to do something in addition to ranking it on the application. If it's just screened with grades, you should assess your chances based on what your grades are for that school, but you don't have to do anything. You just have to put that school down on the application. If it's an audition school, you have to audition. If it's a screened with assessment school, you will have to do something. You'll submit something or interview or complete an assessment or something, and make sure you understand what that is.
There's another question. Sorry if I'm skipping around and I missed anything, but is it highly unlikely to get into a school that has borough as a priority if you currently live or go to school in a different borough? Is it worth ranking those schools? My response to that is it's absolutely worth considering those schools. In some cases, a borough, for example, several schools in Manhattan may have partial Manhattan priority, so where they give priority to up to 75% of a certain of that applicant pool. Other schools give complete borough priority, but talk to your counselor. There is no harm whatsoever in listing that school anyway, but obviously you want to sort of have an understanding of what your chances might be. And you will most likely see situations like that where you might have one bar that the DOE gives you for that kind of program. And that may very well be why. is because you're in that lower priority group. It also depends on the school. You know, some schools are just more in more high demand than others. So
And
yes, it's worth ranking the school.
And also on my schools, when it turns over, it'll show how many kids were accepted from the different priority groups. So if it's, but again, if you love that school and even if it's you would be low priority, put it on the application because guess what? You will be on the wait list automatically on it if it's ranked higher than the school you're placed, and you can add yourself to the wait list. Some schools, even ones that are high in demand, will actually go through the wait list more. Now, I can't say, but there's just no harm in ranking some schools that are really a reach. Just make sure your application isn't packed with them. And the bargain, I always say, for every school that's a real reach, make sure you at least counter it with a school that's you have like the hot 3 bars, if that's it, or a good chance.
Yeah, and by the way, to Laura's point, it's an important one because in the wait list, you are ordered, your waitlist position incorporates priority group. However, if there's a school that has partial geographic priority, those partial geographic priorities are eliminated in the waitlist. So, in other words, if I'm a Brooklyn student applying to a school in Manhattan that gives partial priority up to 75% to Manhattan students, that goes away in the waitlist. So I will, in other words, I will not necessarily be at a disadvantage because of that original geographic priority in terms of my waitlist position. So I hope that makes sense.
Where can you find which tier your child is in? Once your application is live and you log in, it will tell you. It'll be personalized to your child based on their final 7th grade report grades in the core subjects. It's very important. You could also check what the tier cutoffs are. And if you feel that it was calculated incorrectly, address that with your guidance counselor. But once the application is live and you access it with the access code, you should see what tier your child's in and double check it based on your child's, the grades that you know that they got in their final report card, the official ones, to make sure that it was an accurate calculation, especially because it goes on a scale of like tier 1 was 94.25. You had to have, was a cutoff. It was a little more, or the top 15% in your school, but not below 90. Thing is, a lot of middle schools or some middle schools don't give grades on a scale of 100, so they have to convert. So if they do on 1, 4, 4 being the highest grade you get, and you get 1, 2, 3, or 4, things like that. It doesn't happen that often, but check every bit of personal information that your child's application has to make sure it's accurate. And if you feel that something is missing or incorrect, address it. But keep in mind, if you're in charter or independent schools, you may not see your tier for a few extra weeks because they haven't loaded the grades yet.
So it's past 8 o'clock, but Laura, I think, are you okay going a little bit
Sure, let's
longer?
go. If we,
So my child is currently at a 6 to 12, so a middle school that continues to high school, which he wants to use as a backup. We've heard the school recommends put it as number 1 on the DOE general app. So I'm going to quickly get to the crux of this question, which is you can list it wherever you want. If you have other programs that you prefer over returning to your guaranteed backup current school, you can do that. It should be listed last on your application. You don't have to put it number 1. That is your prerogative, whether or not to put it number 1. If you know you want to go back to your current school, put it number 1. But if there are other programs that you prefer, list it above that program, and it'll always be a guaranteed backup.
and you should know schools don't see how you rank them, even if they tell you that they do, they don't. So don't be afraid to rank in true order of preference. There is no strategizing on that. The way the algorithm works is rank in true order preference. So if you're top, your preferred school, number one school is a reach, and you think, well, I'm undermining my chances to get into the school number three, which is much more of a match. No, don't, so I'll just put that first. Don't put your reach first if that's what you want. Put the one that's a match third if that's your third choice. Truly rank in, your order of preference.
If you apply to charter schools and regular public schools, can you be accepted to both and be able to choose? The answer is yes. You will find out about the regular public results in early March, and you'll find out about charter school results in April. So if by chance you get a charter school offer that you prefer, you can always choose that. So essentially, yes, you can choose between those.
And then you shouldn't let the school know that. I think the DOE would know that, but if not, if you're gonna switch to a charter school, decline the seat so you could free it up for another student early on in the waitlist process.
Another question is, how well do you have to do on the SHSAT? The short answer to that is, on the DOE website, there's a chart with the most recent year's score thresholds for each of the 8 specialized high schools. They change slightly every year, so know that they're not necessarily going to be exactly the same this year, but that'll give you a sense of how you need to perform to be eligible for an offer to each of the 8 SHSAT schools. Oh, thank you, Gigi. She put the link to all the cutoffs for last year. Great.
Great. And for this year, because it's a digital format, even though it's covering the same kind of material that it was in the paper form for years, and if you're studying and working on skills, it's very important to do some practice tests in the digital format, because you just got to get comfortable answering it in that format. So make sure that you incorporate in your studies doing practice tests in the digital format, and not just, if you're taking a course or your work teacher is giving it after school help, or you're just doing it on your own from books, which is fine. You can do a lot of practicing in the books, but make sure you also do some practice tests. And the DOE has a site that gives you to like 2 full digital tests, plus they also additional skills tests. There's a lot of resources, and the Inside Schools page also gives you some tips to do even more practice. Some sort of fee-based test prep will actually offer free tests, or for a very small fee, you can take a full practice exam setting, So it's very important to build confidence and not just practice the skills, and you build the confidence by taking the test in the, practicing in the format that it'll be given this year. And it's really new for everyone this year.
If you have any remaining questions, I would encourage you to put them in the chat before we wrap up for the evening. Another question is, how soon do you have to accept your seat in public schools? So if you get one match in early March from either a specialized high school, because it is possible to just get an offer to a specialized high school. It doesn't happen much, but it's possible. Or you just get one match from your main application. That one offer is the school you're expected to attend. So you don't have to accept it per se, unless you're in a non-public school, in which case they expect you to accept the offer. If you get multiple offers from a specialized high school and from the main application, then the DOE usually gives you 2 or 3 weeks to make a decision between those. There's a question, I think Laura touched on this, but I asked about recommendations from teachers or counselors. Generally, that is not a thing with applying to public schools in New York City.
And test scores don't matter. Signing into attending an open house doesn't matter. Attendance, school attendance, so especially if there's anyone here who had an older child who applied a few years back, some of those things were eliminated. So it's grades for schools that screen and look at it's your final 7th grade grades, report card grades in the core subjects. And if you're 9th grade applying to 10th grade, they're looking at your final 8th grade, I believe. Yeah.
Is there a link to explain the ranking or what tier the students are a candidate for what schools to look at? If I'm understanding that question correctly, it sounds like you're saying, how can I have a sense of what schools I have a chance of getting into? In which case, definitely speak with your counselor. The offers chances bars are a tremendous tool to help you get a better sense. Um, is that what you're asking? Okay, sounds like that's what you're asking. Now, in terms of ranking, as Laura's so nicely described tonight, you should rank in true preference order regardless of your chances of getting into a school. So the two things are sort of independent from one another. So if you have a school that's your top choice, but we know it's a hard school to get into, it's a long shot, that's okay. You should still put it as your number one choice. You're not going to be disadvantaged for the programs that you list below that. Any last minute questions? It's already 8:15 about, so or is there anything we
If your
missed?
child attends a DOE public school, you may be able to view your child's, oh, Gigi's, that's not a question. Gigi was giving an answer. So thank you, Gigi. You're, by the way, you've been amazing. Thank you
Thank you,
so much
Gigi.
for just populating the chat with lots of great links and answers. I so appreciate it.
Laura, do you think we got to everything?
I think, is Grammarly considered cheating on the essay? Non, I think, I think so. Yeah, because it's AI. The kid, I mean, that said, teachers know, first of all, Grammarly may also correct things, make it grammatically correct to a point that a typical 13-year-old would not use, and they may suggest language. It should be the student's work product. Don't use AI. That said, you can look it over, and if you see typos, you can tell them, correct the spelling on that. I mean, that's not a problem. For that things, but I don't use AI. The kids can do it, and they're really not looking for rock star essays. They know what a 13-year-old can write, and they'll spot, if you use it, they might throw in semicolons or words that even if the child knew the answer, they knew the meaning of it. It's just not something they would use at that point in their life. So avoid AI.
I'm
I'm
just going
not
to
keen on students using AI. But you can correct typos and brainstorm and help them frame it, builds their confidence, but then let them go off and write it. And then it might take multiple drafts, but they'll get there and it'll be good. And if there's a typo in the end or a slightly grammatically incorrect sentence, but it's great, conveying great ideas, they'll be scored well. That's what the schools are looking for.
I'm just going to take this opportunity to put the screen up if there's anything you'd like to add, Laura.
Sure. So, it's also all on the inside, our main flagship website, over 20 years old, InsideSchools.org. You can use that QR code or just go to InsideSchools.org, and that's where you can search for schools, read lots of handy guides, written and video guides. We have Inside Schools Plus, another forum where you can ask questions, but also pose questions that other families can weigh in on. And I have weekly newsletters in English and Spanish. This one is for the English one. I actually compose it and write it. We may consider going to bi-weekly, but it will always be packed with the latest admission updates and other interesting education news and free programs, because we have a huge section free programs in Inside Schools, and there are a lot of great free opportunities, extracurricular, weekend, after school, and summer for high school students. And in their newsletter, every edition, I include a few with upcoming deadlines, and we have this fully updated free programs guide with over 200 programs on Inside Schools. So I encourage you to search that, because that's a great way to supplement your students' education, because New York City is a classroom for kids themselves.
So I'm
And
just going to
questions at Inside Schools, feel free to email questions there or click on Ask on the homepage and complete the form, and we will answer your question.
Thank you, Laura. So I'm just going to give my quick 30-second
Sure.
plug, and then maybe we can wrap up because I know I want to respect everyone's time. So if you are interested, I have a small team of admissions counselors. We have worked in schools. We've worked as counselors for dozens of years collectively, and we're happy to talk to you about how we might be able to help your family. Everything from pre-K all the way up through college admissions. I have a wonderful college admissions counselor on my team as well. So contact us. We always give a 10 or 15-minute introductory phone call to see how we can work privately with you and help you out. And if your school or your PTA is interested in having us come do a talk, we are doing a lot of talks these days. I came from a talk right before we came online tonight. Let us know, if you're part of your PTA or your school community and you want us to come do a talk on high school admissions or any other part of the admissions process. So with that, I want to thank Laura and Gigi and the entire team at Inside Schools. And thank you so much. We welcome any feedback that you have. We're going to get the recording out to everybody as quickly as we can. Laura, any parting words of wisdom?
No, and also please share our prior webinars with your school community, the links to, because it's packed with information. The DOE will be also hosting sessions coming up. I think our added value is we offer a lot of advice on how to navigate the process, and we do also cover the rules. So there's a lot of great advice to help you find the schools that are right for you. So please share that. They're available in English and Spanish, and encourage any your schools to spread the word to any families that could benefit from joining our office hours in Spanish next Wednesday at 6 p.m. And Gigi will be leading that with Stephanie Urania. So thank you so much. This was great. We piloted this office hours. We hope we helped a lot. And I know we talked fast, but I think we covered a lot. And please, if you haven't, go back to our original two webinars from the spring, because we covered a lot in those.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Gigi. Have a
Take
good night,
care. Have a
everyone.
great night, everyone.